that's what I'd like to do today, is really give you a sense of who AstraZeneca is and how we're engaging the workforce in a different way so we can try to achieve our objectives, right? Sustainability, productivity, those are two, but you can also think of safety, quality, environment, there's a number of dimensions you can measure on your business, but really engaging the workforce is absolutely key, and doing that in a different way. So with that, what I'd like to do is just share who we are. So I see a couple other pharma companies in here, but AstraZeneca is a UK company, so we're not as well known in the US, but we are a top 10 pharma company. So what we do is we discover new medicine. So we discover the medicine, develop it, manufacture it, sell it, distribute it globally. So we're very much an innovative company, and we value the science. Now, we have a really broad range of products that we make, some to rare disease, where you only have maybe a couple hundred patients globally, to products like Farxiga, Crestor, where you have millions and millions of patients, right? So we have a big spectrum there, and across a broad therapeutic class. We also have a very diversified portfolio geographically as well. But I think one thing that's getting a lot more airtime is our commitment to sustainability and our commitment to our people and the planet. And so I'll talk a little bit about that tomorrow when we do our sustainability session. But that's really just a quick snapshot of who AstraZeneca is. And then within global operations, my job is to manufacture medicine. So I have responsibility for the Americas Supply region, which is 8 sites in North America, South America. But this is really the entire global operations team. So AstraZeneca has about 90,000 people, 14,000 of those are here in global operations. We're in 25 different plants located in 15 different countries. We source to just about every country in the world. So we keep very busy on this. But you can see just the spectrum, a lot of tablets, 28 billion tablets we make a year. So a lot of volume. I think you get the picture on this in terms of the complexities that we have. And I think the last piece around the employees and the nationalities represented by our employees, 117 different countries. So Ellen McMahon, who's here with me today, we're going to talk a little bit more about our diversity, our inclusion, and our engagement strategy for the workshop. So you'll get a better sense of that. So that's global operations. But I want to build on some of the things Matt was talking about, and that is, here are some of the macro themes we're seeing from a changing world. And I just bolded a few things that I'm going to tease out through the discussion. The first is around science and technology, and I think you saw it in the last discussion, just how, you heard reference to floppy disks, right? So you can kind of get a sense for how much the world has changed, and really what some of the new science is teaching us, and some of the advances in technology and what that's providing us. So we now have new ways to treat unmet medical needs, new modalities. That immediately comes back to us in terms of, okay, how do we make those new modalities? So that's one big change that we're seeing. The other big one is just global societal changes. And what you're seeing much, much more is really a cost pressure on us. Quite simply, nations and providers just can't afford our medicine. And that's a global theme. You see it here in the US with the Inflation Reduction Act, finally capping some of the pharma prices. The other global societal shift is around sustainability, and there's a greater demand for decarbonizing your supply chains, as well as health equity. So for ourselves, being in the healthcare business, health equity is a big piece, making sure that we have equal access. Patients, of course, their expectations are changing, and again, themed around sustainability. And then I think the last piece, which I think is really evident, is just, digital data, and what that means. And so with the evolution of all of these different technology platforms, it's driving a completely different need in our workforce, and one that really drives on lifelong learning, which we'll hit upon. So that's really 4 big themes. I think it ties in well with what Matt shared. The external workplace is changing, as well as the workforce. And I think we're in a constant state of transformation. I think that's probably the new theme, is everyone's always transforming to keep up. But we're seeing demographic shifts as well. We're seeing a retirement cliff where some of the older workforce is moving out, and we just don't have the workforce to backfill. Digitization and analytics is, of course, providing a major shift for us, which underscores our need for learning agility. So when we hire new people, we have to be very, very cautious about can they learn, can they grow, can they develop. The human-centric leadership, and we'll talk much more about this in our breakout session that we have, is really around the expectation of employees is also rapidly changing. Not just flexibility, but being able to grow, develop, a different expectation in the worker-employer relationship. And then a volatile labor market. I think we really saw that after COVID, but within operations, we have shop floor personnel who are typically hourly. We then have a salaried staff, scientific staff, and we've seen really dynamic changes in that market as well. And so there's an awful lot going on here. And so the areas of focus, and this ties in well with Matt's theme around the frontline workforce and preparing that frontline workforce for the future, is really around the shifting expectations of the shop floor operator, the material handler, the quality analyst. And it's about having a workforce that's much more autonomous, much more capable, much more independent. And the expectation is that we would need them to really manage themselves and come up with new creative ideas. It's not enough to do your job. You have to do your job and make it better. And so I think there's a different expectation on our shop floor workforce than we've had in previous years. The human-centric leadership, think about the first-line leader, the second-line leader. How do they engage that workforce differently so that they're always growing and developing and able to do their best work? So that's really a focus of ours, an area of focus. And then the last piece is really that entire employee experience. So how do we bring somebody in and let them grow through their career? How do they grow and develop? And what's the pathway for their employee experience? How do they grow in their career? One of the things I'm pretty proud of at my sites is when we have new operators come in and they give feedback on what's their first 90 days like. What I like hearing is, hey, at AstraZeneca, I have a career here. I'm a formulator, I'm a material handler, but I feel like I have a career. And that's because we don't treat the employees differently, whether they're hourly or salary. We try to treat everybody as salaried employees and invest in them. And so I think that's something around everyone having a career pathway is really important. And that really helps us drive the sustainability and productivity that I'll get to. So what are we doing? So those are the areas we're focusing on. But what are we actually doing? So the first is we're leading with our purpose, our values, our behaviors. And I think for us, being in the healthcare sector, we have a real advantage because I can draw a straight line from the work I'm doing today to a patient. And it's always fantastic to get patient stories. We have someone come back and say, you know what, I had my lifestyle like this before I took your medicine and now I can do all these things again. So that's really, and we need to share that with our people. So we're doing that much, much better. For a long time, I felt like we under-leveraged that. It's right in front of us, and we're not sharing that with our workforce. But people are just inspired. They have a sense of purpose. They come in, and they're just far more committed because they know the work they're doing is going to make a difference. So we're really trying to leverage that a bit. I think the coaching piece, the second one, we changed our performance management model from, hey, at the end of the year, I'll give you your rating, and here's your bonus, okay? You exceeded expectations, you're below expectations, right? And we went from that model a few years ago to now, I'm going to meet with you quarterly, and we're going to talk about how you develop. And so what went well, what didn't go well in the last quarter, what did you learn from it, and how will you get better going forward? That discussion, that whole dynamic, so we don't have ratings anymore. But what it really means is that frontline leader now has to be a coach, has to be a teacher, really has to be someone that supports the employee. Inclusion and diversity. We call it inclusion and diversity, not D&I. Most places call it diversity and inclusion. We put the emphasis on inclusion. And inclusion is something we have complete control over. It's how we behave. It's how we engage workforce. It's how we allow people to participate. So we're really focusing on that inclusion. We need every person to come in every day and do their best work. And so everybody's included in that. So we put a lot more focus on the inclusion piece, as well as the diversity piece. But the inclusion piece is something you can do instantly. All right? It's really about leader behavior. So we're focusing on that. And then lastly, I mentioned it, with just all the change, we need people that can always learn, always reinvent themselves, always come up with new skills, et cetera, and so that they can always fully contribute. So those are the things that we're doing. We're really promoting that lifelong learning. So I'll get into some of the actions we're taking, excuse me, around sustainability and productivity. And I think the first thing we've done is we created an AstraZeneca supply system. And we did this about 7 years ago. We really formalized it. And I'm not going to go through the supply system house, but I think most manufacturers have something like this. If you think of Toyota production system and you read all the lean books, right, it's really around Toyota production system. Procter & Gamble has IWS. Well, we have our AstraZeneca supply system. And so when you think of lean, OpEx, you can use a lot of different terminologies, but it's really about how do you add value to the customer? Who is the customer? How are you adding value? How are you eliminating waste, right? And so what we're doing is every employee gets certified on this, so they understand it, but they also understand the tools. So all of the practical problem solving, the Six Sigma, et cetera, all of those kind of tools are embedded in there. But what this does is it provides really a consistent approach of how we're running all these sites across the world, right? So we now have a consistent operating doctrine. Here's how we're going to run our operations. And what it does is every employee is engaged. Every employee is expected to participate and to contribute. And then last is we have a common definition and language that we have. So that allows us to really standardize much, much better. So I put in parentheses, no idea too small. And there's one site that I'll just share with you that has a program. Well, I won't call it a program. It's fairly informal, but it's a contest. And there's a trophy that gets handed out or passed around from department to department. But who had the best idea this week? And who implemented the best idea? And the ideas could be simple. They could be small. But it could be an operator has his toolbox here, but the equipment's over there. Let's put a storage space next to the equipment, right? So you eliminate the walking back and forth. It's a simple idea, but the only rule is you have to have implemented it and you had to have shared it. And so we pass this trophy around. It makes its way around the site, but it's generated thousands of different ideas, big, small. But what happens is over time you get better and better. And so that's kind of the engagement that we're talking about. So I'll give some specifics now. And I want you to think about, this is at my level, at the regional level, but then you have to think about what happens at the site and the department level. So envision some of the KPIs I want to share as being cascaded. And the first I'll share is really around my carbon footprint as a regional lead. And what you see here, and this is real numbers, and I just pulled this off, so these aren't recreated slides, but this is what we shared at our business review meetings, which is what's my glide path? Am I on my glide path? How am I going to get to a scope 1 and 2 carbon zero impact? And what are the ways I'm going to do this? Now, what you don't see here is because we don't do volume offsets, but my volume has doubled over the last 5 years. But you see my energy is about flat. And that's because of the employees who are engaged. We're finding creative ways to how do you reduce your energy consumption. So not only did we keep our energy flat, but we're now driving out the carbon footprint here. This next one, again, it's really just a screenshot of my scorecard. So nothing particularly fancy here, but you can see all my sites. And you can start to see my waste, my water, my circularity, my energy consumption, and my global greenhouse. And so I'm on a glide path where every year I have to hit certain targets. And you can see some sites are hitting their target, some sites are not. So what you can envision now is every site having this at their top level, at their site leadership team, but then it drills down into the department and into the shop floor. And where we've seen a lot of engagement is around the circularity. So you have operators coming out and saying, wait a second, I'm seeing a lot of waste here. Can I reuse these pallets? Can I reuse these fiber drums? Can I reuse these things and increase our circularity? So really getting everyone engaged around how we're measuring. You know what? This valve has been left on. I'm going to turn that off. It helps me with my water consumption. You know what? The CIP cycle is going for too long. Can we shorten it? So you get all these creative ideas across thousands of people, starts to drive these numbers down. Another quick example just around productivity, same thing. You know, your trend should go in a couple directions. Your unit cost should go down. Your throughput per FTE should go up, right? And that's what you see here. And what we do is we try to create a multi-year view. And you can see I have a couple issues. I have, in one area, I have my costs are going to go up in 2 years. So what am I going to do today to help reshape that curve? And that's where we start engaging everybody. So we actually have the problem statement. But this is some of the productivity that we were trying to drive through here. And I could have picked any other KPI. I could have picked safety. I could have picked some of my other environmental targets. I could have picked quality targets, et cetera, et cetera. But I wanted to focus on these two. Okay, and then the last one I'll share is just the pulse survey. We call it a pulse survey. You're taking a pulse of the organization. But every year we have one of these. We used to do it every 2 years, where you go out and you ask about a series of about 25 questions. And this is just one sample sheet. And what we're doing is, well, we have employee engagement as a theme throughout. It should be happening 24/7. At least once a year, we go out and we have a formal survey. And we get about 95%. It's voluntary, but we get 95% participation. So you get a good sense of how people are feeling and what they're doing. And this is just a sample snapshot of this, but I'll point on one, which is our sustainability goals. And I'm at 88%. And you can see it went up 1 point from the last time we took this survey. And it's about, do I understand how I contribute to our sustainability targets? And so 88% are favorable. What also means 12% are not. Okay, so we have a little bit more work to do here. Maybe our new employee orientation should be upgraded or enhanced to make sure that people can see that connectivity. And so that's an example. So we'll take the survey results, we'll do the focus groups, we'll make sure we put actions in place, and we'll share that. And so that's just an example of how we're trying to really harness the power of the workforce. 14,000 people. You know, we need every person every day doing their best work and moving the business forward. Okay, and so lastly, I'll leave you with a question, and for folks who are going to be joining us at the roundtable, is what else can you do to better engage your workforce? And I think that's a fundamental question that really is an underpinning to our success and to our future. So with that, folks, thank you very much. Really good to see everyone.